Hi, David Odell here with Odell Complete Concrete. This is part 2 of a 2-part series. I'm going to link part 1 in the description of this video. But right now this is pour day, and the first one we showed demo. Now I'm oiling up the forms right now. I'm using a special mixture of form oils out of my truck, used motor oil with a little bit of diesel to loosen it up. Concrete truck has arrived. We're using gravel pit. The good news is I found a new concrete supplier in my area called Gravel Pit. So we're giving them a shot because I didn't have good luck on my last pour with the other company. So we're going to try this one out and see how this goes. We also have a little blooper reel within this video that I thought I saved it. I left it in the video. So you'll get to see that when it comes up. Here's a little screed attachment. Since I'm using aluminum screeds, I have to use tape to hold on the guide. And that guide that I taped on there is going to ride on top of this little stem wall. It's a 4-inch stem wall, and that screed's 4 inches, so that little stake I taped on top will ride on the top of that stem wall. So I'll get a really flat piece of concrete here with guides all the way down. And there's a good close-up of how that works. This is a 3000 PSI, and I did ½ pound per yard of fiber mesh. Also, we have wire mesh in here. That's 6-inch squares, 10 gauge. We got some gravel base that just happened to be here on the site. We just had to level everything up. In part 1, you can see all of that detail, the setup, the removal of a solid concrete porch, and we found a little bit of wildlife underneath the concrete as well. Using a wood bull float 4 foot wide. In the winter we use a wood, that way we leave it open and let the water bleed out. In the summer you want to seal it, so you're going to use a magnesium. This stem wall is going to support the new patio cover. You can see how it's temporarily braced. That way we can work underneath this. Normally the post would come straight down, and they will once this is all put in place. And so this will be a full enclosure. Oh, there's your blooper reel. Right there, Doug went down. He was pulling the concrete hose, got hung up on the wire, and just tumbled over. Here's Efren. He's a local contractor out here as well. And I teamed up with him to get some of his guys over here to help me finish this out. So this back area where it gets a little bit wider, it's 14 by 14. That'll be like the shed or workshop area. And he's got doors on the right there. So it's an 8-foot opening there. And at the front of this, once it's fully enclosed, there'll be a double swing right here at the front. So you can still drive a vehicle in there. It's just a long garage with a workshop in the back is what it's going to end up being. So we're going to wet set some bolts in that stem wall also. If you look at the stem wall, you can see those little blockouts in there. That's for drainage. So we'll get some cross slope on this driveway from the left to the right, and those blockouts will allow the water to run through and out.
That's okay.
Little bit of a clog in the hose there, so Julio had to break it apart at the reducer and knock the rock. It was a big rock too that was in there. I don't even know how it got that far in the line. We went about 14 yards on this one. It really figures only about 11 yards, but we were running deep all the way through. So this is probably an average depth of 5 inches, plus you have that stem wall, which eats up a little bit of concrete. Here's our joint tool. This one's about 5 feet. I think it's about 5 foot long cutter. So it's easy to get your lines straight with something that long. Now those joints are going to have to come up and over the stem wall because we're going to be facing that while wet and smoothing out the sides of these stem walls. So once we start stripping, we can go ahead and bang those joints through the stem wall. Now we've switched over to the magnesium bowl float since it's starting to dry up. And here's the second load backing up to the pump. And there's the line all the concrete's going through to get back here. This load came a little bit wetter than the first one, but it may be from the washout from the previous chute that dropped into the hopper of the pump. So it stiffens up pretty quickly. We got Eric on the wire, making sure that it's been pulled up all the way through. So there's a little box out right there on the right. Jorge's on the rod stick, or you could call it a screed too. The wall will be framed over the top of that, so the top plate will span that box out, and he'll probably make a little frame and screen to pop in and out of there as needed. Mostly he's just going to use it kind of like a wash bay for his boat in here. So that's the only time it's really going to see water is when he's washing his boat down, maybe even a car, whatever he wants to do in there. But the screens will be removable. That way, if it does get some debris on it, you can pull them out, clean them. A little return on the end there, so we have a perfect 10-foot opening. Here's the final joints going in on the second pour. Also, we're just doing the joints going across this driveway, which is 13.5 feet wide. What I'll do is I'll come back the very next day and I'll use the early entry concrete saw, and I'm going to run another cut lengthwise all the way down the middle. You'll get to see that in action as well. So I'm going to be using a battery powered early entry saw. Okay, here's your curved face starting to get stripped out, and then we're smoothing up the face. The nice thing about having this stem wall here for that wall that's going to get framed up is that it protects it from water damage, like your siding. Say you even wanted to drywall in here, because this is a 6-inch wide stem and the 4-inch plate will be to the outside edge. You could drop your sheet, outside sheeting, below top of plate so you can't get water in there. And also on the inside, because of the width, you could drop your drywall and it's still sitting on top of the stem, or it's going to be a minimal water damage. Here we are on the stem wall. This is Luis right here. Got a double round trowel, 20-incher. Eric's stripping the forms right now, getting all the stakes out and the top ties off of that stem wall, prepping to pull the face. So you've noticed the skirting's off on the bottom of that manufactured home. And what's going to happen, the way I've set this up, is I've got pressure treated underneath the trailer. That way that form would stay in, the siding will come down on top of that pressure treat. There's your pressure treated lumber. That's going to stay in there on the left side underneath the trailer. Also, I have screws that are protruding into the concrete. That way it can never fall away from there, and it'll make a good anchor point for that siding. Here's your funny trowel going on. Here's your cove tool on the edges. That wasn't the cove, that was your top tool. Here's your cove right here. I had to pull a little cream off the top to try to get some meat into the bottom there. This concrete's finishing real nice. A lot of cream to work with. Because I'm doing a broom finish on this, That's why I go lighter on the fiber instead of a full pound per. You could go up to 3 pounds a yard, but typically they like to put a pound per yard. I like a half pound, especially when I'm doing a broom. There's that form coming off. Came off real clean because that oil, it really works. Plus, it's going to preserve my wood for multiple uses. Luis is coming down the side right now, catching the edge on his sliders. Here's some of those little notch outs for drainage. I got to build that up a little bit in there. It was left just a little low, but I do want it a little bit lower than the rest. The water would drain out easy, but that was just a little too much. Looks like there might have been a sticky spot right here where it was hung up on the face. So we jammed a trowel in there to release it a little easier. But you can see when we take those forms off, it's right at the bottom of concrete. And that's because we had the rod with the guide on top. So it wasn't high, it wasn't low, it was just right on. There's another nice thing about having that fiber in the concrete. You can strip a little bit earlier typically than you normally would because that fiber helps it stand up. Here's the broom going on. A little drier here in the middle than at the beginning of the pour, so we started brooming here. A bucket of water to rinse the bristles out of the broom every so often. Also, I'm going to have Eric's going to come down that curb face with a nice wide paintbrush to touch up that curb face and top of curb. Here's Jorge on the walk-in joiner. Also edging on the little box outs both ways. These are all galvanized half-inch bolts, 10-inch long. Just waiting to strip that second load. Here's Eric on the paintbrush. Look at the detail. Second load is catching up with that first one. So now we were able to strip the face of this one, drop a cove in there and a top tool all the way down. Really good weather on this pour, about 75 degrees max. No wind, so really ideal conditions. Here's the last little piece of that return for the entryway coming off. I'm going to be spraying some curing compound on this as well. Homeowner's not going to be here. This is actually a vacation home, so what's going to happen is I'll hit it with curing compound. That way he won't have to stay here to keep it wet all the time. We got Josh down here on his hands and knees, sponging the existing concrete clean. And here's a nice look at it. Someone dumped a bucket of the water right there from the brooming. No big deal though. It was hard enough not to affect the finish. Here's day 2 after the pour. We got out here bright and early the next morning to take the remaining forms off. Also, I got to put my cut all the way down the middle. Forms are coming off real nice. I had a double stack 2x4 on the back side, which comes in handy having a lot of 2x4 because I do a lot of flat work. Rather than using a 2x8 on the back, I just stack 2x4s. You can see how the concrete, it kind of has a little shine to it. That's because of that curing compound. The way these lots are set up is they're designed with no slope in them. Everything's level. So the only way you can get drainage is cross slope. So that's why instead of picking it up in the rear and draining it out the front, we would have had to come up about 7 to 9 inches to get slope from rear to front. So we just elected a cross slope. That way we wouldn't be changing elevations in this lot. Here's your saw cut with the chalk line going on first. The way we're doing this chalk line, we're not really measuring center of anything. We just pulled the line out on the existing joint and we just followed that all the way through. See, it may not be dead center, but it's straight with the existing, and that's what you'll see mostly is when you're standing out here at the front of the driveway, you're going to be looking right down that existing joint, and it's just going to carry on through. Here's the Milwaukee early entry saw with the battery pack on it. Runs really straight and true. Just won't go over these curbs though, so I'm going to have to finish that up with a hand cut. Look at that cut, no spalling at all. There's another beauty of fiber mesh. If there wasn't fiber mesh in here, there is a chance I could get spalling potentially, cutting it this early. But the fiber fixes all that. Here's a little 9-inch battery powered cutoff saw finishing up the cuts. Now, if there is any water buildup in any of this area, it would be along the curb. So potentially you could, if you wanted to, drill some holes all the way through. But once this is enclosed, it's probably never going to see water, other than a occasional boat washing or something like that. I could have hooked up my vacuum to the saw, but I like washing this down, getting a lot of water on it. This is going to help water cure it at the same time. So I was going to put water on it regardless, so we might as well make it meaningful and knock out, two birds with one stone. Clean it and water cure it simultaneously. Right here, I'm dragging the broom right over on the top of that cut. Because a lot of times, just with water alone, some of that residue is not going to come off right away. It will over time. Even if I left it on there, it would eventually just come off. But I want to leave this thing, floor room shine. Now look at that water buildup right along the curb, right where you'd want it. And I'm just helping it along with a broom. It would inevitably drain out on its own, but it would just take a while. Plus I have some cement residue in there I wanted to push out quickly. So this baby's ready to build on. Those wood stakes you see on the left holding that pressure treated 2x4, those will stay in there also. So you can stack another 2x4 on top of the pressure treated, screw the siding into it. Here's your final look at a magnificent job, perfectly engineered. All right, thanks for watching the video. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. If you have any questions concerning your future project or ongoing project, get me on consultation through my website at Odell Complete Concrete. Thank you. Bye.